Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You ready to unpack what it really takes to nail that sales director interview in 2025?
I think a lot of people going into these interviews might be surprised by just how much the role has changed.
Yeah, it's not your typical sales job anymore, right?
Yeah.
We're not just talking about closing deals. We're going to dig into how 2025 sales director interview questions and answers breaks down this complex role.
This source is great because it goes way deeper than, the usual surface level tips. It really dives into the mindset and strategies that set you up for success as a sales director.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly does a sales director DO in 2025?
It's definitely expanded. The source we're looking at highlights four main areas they'll be grilling you on.
Okay, lay it on me.
Leadership and vision, of course.
Yeah.
Then sales expertise and strategy.
So far, so good. Makes sense.
Then you've got your behavioral and situational questions.
Ah, yes, those tricky ones.
And finally, performance management and analytics.
Wow. Okay. So they're looking for someone who can not only sell, but lead, strategize, analyze data, and handle those curveball questions about how you've handled tough situations in the past.
Exactly. They want to see the whole package.
Yeah.
Someone who can not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk.
Okay. So before we even get to crafting those perfect answers, let's break down each of those four areas, starting with leadership and vision. What kind of questions should our listener expect here?
Well, they'll want to see how you inspire your team, how you set a clear direction, and how you create a culture of success.
So it goes way beyond just motivating the team to hit quota.
For sure. Think about questions like, how do you build trust with your team? Or how do you connect individual goals with the company vision?
So they're really testing your ability to this big picture and get everyone on board with that vision.
Exactly.
Okay. What about sales expertise and strategy? What are they looking for there?
This is where they'll test your strategic thinking, how you approach market analysis, identify opportunities, develop sales plans that actually align with company goals.
So more than just knowing the latest sales techniques.
Right. They might ask something like, how do you stay ahead of the curve in a constantly changing market?
What's your approach to entering a new market?
Yeah, exactly. They want to see if you can think strategically about growth, not just closing individual deals.
Okay, so we've got vision and strategy covered. Now those behavioral and situational questions, those always trip me up.
They can be tricky because they're less about specific knowledge and more about how you've actually handled challenges in the past.
Right. They want to see how you think on your feet, how you lead under pressure. Give me an example.
Okay, well, they could ask something like, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult client.
Oof, yeah, we've all been there.
Or maybe describe a situation where you had to make a tough decision with very limited information.
So it's all about demonstrating your problem-solving skills,
Yeah.
your communication style, your ability to stay calm when things get tough.
Precisely.
And lastly, performance management and analytics. I feel like data is just becoming more and more crucial in sales these days.
Absolutely, it is. And companies want sales directors who can use that data to drive performance.
So be ready for questions about sales forecasting, CRM systems, all those key metrics you use to track progress and identify areas for improvement.
Right. It's all about showing them that you're not just going with your gut, but using data to back up your decisions.
Being a data-driven coach for your sales team.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we've got a good handle on those four key areas. But let's actually dive into some specific questions and how to tackle them. The source, 2025 Sales Director Interview Questions and Answers, really shines here because it gives you those concrete examples and frameworks for building strong answers.
It helps you understand what they're really getting at with each question and shows you how to present yourself as the ideal candidate.
Okay, let's start with a common one. How do you develop and execute a sales strategy that aligns with company goals? How do you nail this one?
It's all about showing that clear connection between what the company wants to achieve and how your sales plan is going to get them there. It's not just listing tactics, it's showing that strategic alignment.
Right. They want to see that you can take that big picture company vision and turn it into actionable steps for your team.
Exactly. The source actually has a really helpful example answer for this one.
Let's hear it.
So the candidate starts by talking about understanding the company's long-term vision and then doing a thorough market analysis to identify both opportunities and potential challenges.
Makes sense. You got to know the playing field.
Then they go on to explain how they developed a sales strategy focused on high-growth sectors and clearly defined roles and responsibilities for the team.
So it's all about showing that you've thought things through. You're not just winging it.
Exactly. And they also emphasize communicating that strategy clearly to the entire team getting everyone on board and working towards those shared goals.
Because even the best strategy in the world won't work if you can't get your team to execute it.
Right. That's where those leadership qualities come into play. It's not just about being a great salesperson yourself. It's about inspiring others to achieve success together.
Okay, so we've tackled one tough question. What's another one our listeners should be ready for?
Let's go with, can you describe a time when you turned around a struggling sales team? This one really gets to the heart of your leadership style.
Ah, yes. The classic turnaround story. Everyone loves a good comeback, but you got to show them how you did it. Not just say, I fixed things.
Right. The source emphasizes choosing a specific example that highlights both your analytical skills and your ability to motivate the team.
So it's about showing you can identify the problems,
Yeah.
implement solutions, get everyone on board with the changes.
Exactly. The example they give is a sales director who inherited a team with low morale and outdated sales tactics. They addressed the skills gap by implementing a comprehensive training program focused on modern techniques.
Okay, so addressing the root cause of the problem. Proactive approach. I like it. But what about that low morale? You can't just throw training at people and expect them to suddenly be excited about their jobs.
Right. So the sales director also introduced a new incentive program and really focused on building a more positive and supportive team culture.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel valued and motivated to succeed, not just told what to do.
Exactly. It's that balance of competence, A&D enthusiasm that really builds a high-performing team.
I love that approach. All right, one more question before we wrap up this part of the deep dive. The source also talks about the importance of balancing short-term sales targets with long-term growth. How do you recommend our listener address this?
This one is all about showing that you can think strategically and see beyond those immediate wins. It's about understanding the importance of building sustainable growth, not just chasing quick wins that might hurt the business in the long run.
So how do you demonstrate that balance in a concrete way? What kind of example does the source give?
The answer they provide focuses on making sure your sales efforts aren't just about hitting those quarterly targets, It's also about things like nurturing key accounts, developing new territories, exploring emerging markets.
So it's about playing the long game while still delivering in the short term. It's about building those relationships and expanding the company's reach, not just squeezing every last dollar out of existing customers.
Exactly. And that requires discipline and strategic foresight. It's about resisting those quick wins and focusing on activities that will drive both immediate revenue and sustainable growth.
It's a tough balance to strike, for sure. Okay, we've covered some really great questions here. I feel like our listeners are already getting a much better sense of what to expect in that sales director interview.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface, though.
Right. There's so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
So make sure you join us for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll tackle even more challenging questions and dive deeper into the strategies that will help you ace that interview.
We'll be exploring things like data-driven decision-making, conflict resolution, and staying ahead of the curve in a constantly evolving market. So much good stuff coming up.
Don't miss it.
Welcome back to the deep dive into acing that sales director interview. We're picking up right where we left off.
Still working with those awesome insights from 2025 Sales Director Interview Questions and Answers. This source is a gold mine for anyone prepping for these interviews.
It really is. So let's jump into some more of those challenging questions that really put your expertise to the test.
Sounds good to me. Hit me with one.
Okay, how about this one? How do you ensure your sales targets are realistic and achievable?
I feel like this is something a lot of people struggle with.
It's definitely a balancing act, right? You don't want to set the bar too low and seem unambitious, but you also don't want to set your team up for failure with crazy goals.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot. And the key is to demonstrate that you're using a data-driven approach, not just relying on gut instinct.
Okay, so back up those targets with hard evidence.
Right. Things like market analysis, historical data, even insights from your own sales team.
So you're basically showing them that you've done your homework and you're not just throwing darts at a board.
Right. The source actually provides a really good example for this.
Okay, I'm all ears. They talk about analyzing market trends, looking at competitor performance, and of course, using the company's own sales data from the past.
Makes sense.
So far, so good. But there's another piece to this that I think is really important, involving the sales team in the target setting process.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just a top-down decision. It's more collaborative.
Exactly. You're getting buy-in from the people who are actually responsible for hitting those targets.
Which makes them more likely to own those goals and feel motivated to achieve them.
Right. And you're also tapping into their knowledge and experience on the ground. They might have insights that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. It shows that you value their input
Yeah.
and that you're approaching this as a team effort.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about coaching and developing your sales team. This is another crucial aspect of leadership that they'll definitely be probing.
It's about building a high-performing team for the long haul,
Right?
not just squeezing every last sale out of them right now.
Absolutely. You need to show them that you can not only motivate your team, but also help them grow and reach their full potential.
So how do you demonstrate those coaching and development skills in an interview?
Well, the source emphasizes the importance of identifying the individual needs of your team members and tailoring your approach accordingly.
So it's not one size fits all.
Not at all. Everyone learns differently, responds to different types of feedback, so you need to be adaptable as a coach.
That makes sense. What kind of example do they use to illustrate this point?
They have a great one about a sales director who helped a struggling sales rep improve their closing rate by like 30%.
Wow, that's impressive.
And they did it by using role-playing exercises and providing very specific, personalized feedback.
So it's about creating that safe space to practice and experiment, get comfortable with different approaches.
Exactly. And it shows that you're invested in your team's development, not just their immediate performance.
Okay, that's a good one. Now let's be real for a second. Conflict is inevitable in any team environment, especially in sales where things can get pretty competitive.
Oh yeah, for sure. So how do you recommend handling those questions about conflict resolution?
It's one they almost always ask, right? How do you handle conflict within a sales team?
Definitely. And it's all about showing that you can manage those situations effectively, not just avoid them.
What are some key things to hit on when answering this one?
Well, active listening is huge. You need to show that you can be impartial and help those involved find a solution that works for everyone.
So it's about creating that safe space for dialogue and finding common ground.
Right. The source gives an example of a sales director mediating a conflict between two team members who were constantly butting heads.
That's a tough one for sure.
Instead of taking sides, the sales director brought them together, facilitated a conversation where they could air their grievances and work towards a resolution together.
It's all about finding that win-win where everyone feels heard and respected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that takes some serious emotional intelligence.
Good. Let's move into a topic that's becoming increasingly important in the world of sales data analysis.
Absolutely. Sales is becoming more data-driven every day, and companies want to see that you can use those insights to make smart decisions.
For sure. So what kind of questions should our listeners expect in this area?
They might ask you to describe your experience with sales forecasting and the tools you use to do it.
Okay, so it's not just about knowing what a CRM is. It's about showing how you've actually used those systems to make a real impact.
Exactly. What kind of results have you achieved using data to inform your decisions? That's what they want to know.
Give us an example from the source.
They have one where the candidate used a CRM system integrated with AI-driven analytics to create more accurate sales forecasts.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and they were able to use those insights to adjust their strategy, optimize inventory management, and ultimately save the company a lot of money.
So it's a clear example of how data can drive better business outcomes, not just inform forecasts.
Right. Now, remember that tricky question about balancing short-term sales targets with long-term growth.
Right.
The source has some more advice for how to handle that one.
Yeah, that's a big one, so I'm definitely interested to hear more about it.
They say it's important to demonstrate that you can think strategically and make decisions that benefit the company both now and in the future.
It's about finding that balance between delivering results today without sacrificing those long-term goals.
Exactly. The example they use is a sales director who's obviously focused on hitting those quarterly targets, but also make sure to allocate resources for nurturing key accounts and developing new territories.
So it's like planting those seeds for future growth, even while you're busy harvesting the current crop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows that you have that long-term vision and that you're not just focused on the quick wins.
Okay, let's wrap up this section with one more question that I think is super relevant in today's competitive market. What strategies do you use to maintain a competitive edge in a saturated market?
Ah, yes. It's not enough to just do what everyone else is doing. You need to find ways to stand out, differentiate yourself, bring something new to the table.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what does the source recommend focusing on in your answer?
They really highlight the importance of staying ahead of the curve, adapting to those constant changes in the market, being a continuous learner, basically.
So always be curious. Always be seeking out new knowledge and new ways of doing things.
Right. The example they give is a sales director who noticed a growing trend towards eco-friendly products.
Interesting.
So they adjusted their sales strategy to highlight their company's commitment to sustainability. They tapped into a new market segment and set themselves apart from the competition.
It's a great example of how paying attention to those trends can give you a real advantage.
It's about being proactive, anticipating what your customers are going to want next.
We've covered a lot of ground in this section, but remember, a job interview is a two-way street.
Absolutely. Don't forget to come prepared with your own insightful questions.
It shows you're engaged, you're curious, you're already thinking like a sales director.
The source recommends asking questions that go beyond the surface level.
Give us some examples.
Things like, what are the company's long-term goals?
Ah,
Or how does the sales team contribute to those goals?
okay, those are good ones. What else?
You could also ask about the company culture and values, or maybe inquire about professional development opportunities.
It's about showing them that you're not just looking for a job. You're looking for the right fit.
Exactly. You're looking for a place where you can grow and contribute and be a part of something bigger than yourself.
And we're back for the final part of this deep dive into conquering that sales director interview in 2025.
We've talked about what they're looking for, the tough questions, they'll ask the strategies that work. But now it's time to shift gears a bit.
Right. We've given you the tools, the frameworks, but at the end of the day, it's about showcasing you, your unique strengths and experiences.
It's about taking all that prep work and turning it into a presentation that makes you stand out from all the other candidates.
So how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
It all starts with crafting your story,
Mm.
turning your career journey into a narrative that resonates with the interviewers.
So it's not just about reciting your resume. It's about telling a story that highlights your growth, your challenges, your triumphs as a sales leader.
Exactly. Think about those key moments that shaped your path. What were those pivotal experiences that really made you who you are as a sales professional?
Those moments where you had to really step up and figure things out. Maybe you faced a tough challenge or had to make a difficult decision.
Right. And think about what you learned from those experiences. How did they shape your leadership style, your approach to sales, your ability to motivate and inspire a team?
This is where those behavioral and situational questions come in handy, right?
Absolutely. Remember the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result.
It's a great way to structure your answers so you're not just rambling on, but really showcasing your skills and accomplishments in a concise and impactful way.
It's about telling a story that directly connects your experience to the role you're interviewing for.
So instead of just saying, I increased sales, you might say, I was faced with this specific challenge, I took these steps, and as a result, sales increased by X%.
Exactly. Quantify those achievements whenever possible. Numbers are powerful, especially in sales.
But it's not just about bragging about your past successes, right? It's about connecting the dots for them and showing how those experiences have prepared you for this specific role.
Absolutely. You want them to see that clear progression and understand how your previous roles, even your failures, have given you the skills and insights they need in their sales director.
It's about showing them that you've done your homework and you're not just looking for a sales director job. You're specifically interested in this opportunity at this company.
And that you've really thought about how your skills align with their needs and their goals.
That's where the research you've done on the company and the industry becomes so important.
Use that knowledge of their challenges, their goals, their competitive landscape to tailor your responses and demonstrate your understanding of their unique situation.
So it's about showing them that you're not just reciting generic answers. You're thinking critically and applying your experience to their specific context.
Now, beyond crafting that compelling story and highlighting your achievements, there's another crucial element to acing the interview: leaving a lasting impression.
It's not just what you say, it's how you say it right.
Exactly. You want those interviewers to remember you, not just for your qualifications, but for your energy, your passion, your genuine interest in the role.
So bring your personality to the table. Let them see your enthusiasm for sales, your excitement about this opportunity to lead their team.
Because at the end of the day, you're not just selling yourself. You're selling your vision, your leadership style, your belief in their company's potential.
And that kind of authenticity, that genuine passion, it's contagious. It could really make a difference.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier: asking insightful questions.
So important. The questions you ask can be just as revealing as the answers you give.
It shows you're engaged, you're curious, you're already thinking like a sales director.
What are some of the questions that the source recommends?
They suggest asking questions that dig a little deeper than the surface level. Things like, what are the company's long-term goals? Or how does the sales team contribute to those goals?
Yeah, okay. Those are good ones.
Okay, what else? You could also ask about the company culture, their values, or maybe inquire about professional development opportunities.
It's about showing them that you're not just looking for a paycheck.
Yeah,
You're looking for a place where you can learn and grow and be a part of something bigger.
exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with one final thought. The source we've been working with emphasizes the importance of continuous learning for sales directors.
And that's something to keep in mind throughout your career, not just for the interview.
The world of sales is constantly changing. What are some ways our listeners can stay ahead of the curve and continue to grow as leaders?
That's the question, isn't it? There's so many resources out there.
Mm.
Industry conferences, books, articles, online courses, even just conversations with other sales professionals.
It's about being proactive, seeking out new knowledge and new ways of doing things. Never stop learning, never stop growing.
Absolutely. And that's what it takes to be a successful sales director in today's world.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into acing that sales director interview in 2025. We've covered a lot of ground, but hopefully you're feeling more prepared, more confident, and ready to knock that interview out of the park.
Absolutely. Good luck out there, everyone.
You've got this.